Unit 4. Gateway. Historically, the professions and society have engaged in a negotiating process intended to define the terms of their relationship. At the heart of this process is the tension between the profession's pursuit of autonomy and the public's demand for accountability. Society's granting of power and privilege to the professions is premised on their willingness and ability to contribute to social well-being and to conduct their affairs in a manner consistent with broader social values. It has long been recognized that the expertise and privileged position of professionals confer authority and power that could readily be used to advance their own interests at the expense of those they serve. As Edmund Burke observed 2 centuries ago, men are qualified for civil liberty in exact proportion to their disposition to put moral chains upon their own appetites. Autonomy has never been a one-way street and is never granted absolutely and irreversibly. Exercise 1. At some point, we all find ourselves suffering the consequences of a bad situation that we have put ourselves in. While we wish that we could simply erase it from our record, we, of course, can't do that. Many of us wrongly choose to quickly sweep it under the rug in an impatient attempt to move on. But you've heard the expression, haste makes waste? We usually want to rush and leave the difficulties that we've experienced in life behind us as quickly as possible. But that can make matters worse and lead to bigger problems. Every crisis has a fallout period, and the only way to recover from a crisis is to be mindful of the work that it is going to take to make that happen. If our actions negatively affected other people, they might not be prepared to move on as quickly as we are. Exercise 2. Most coaches and athletes have a basic idea of what stress is, but they may not fully understand its complicated aspects. Stress is a substantial imbalance between what we believe is demanded of us, competitive demand, and what we perceive our capabilities to be for meeting those demands, personal control, for situations in which success is important. Thus, perceptions, not competitive demands themselves, determine the amount and nature of stress we experience. The premise of self-talk is that beliefs determine the impact of a competitive situation more than the situation itself does. Our thoughts are more responsible for our actions than are the situations we practice and compete in. When appraisal is positive, we view a tough opponent as a challenge, which enhances performance. But negative appraisals prompt us to view difficult situations as threats, which hurts performance. One athlete may view a stadium full of people as a great opportunity to show this crowd what I can do, while another may worry about how embarrassed I'll be messing up in front of this crowd. It's the same stadium full of people, but different reactions can lead to either flow or choking. Exercise 3. On a camping trip, my friends and I were filling our water bottles at a stream. We kept losing the bottles due to the powerful force of the water in the stream. One person wanted to go in the water and walk across the stream. However, the water was up to the middle of our thighs, and we could have easily been thrown by the force of the water currents and been severely injured. This is exactly what happens when excessive attachment to family. We are helplessly carried away by the force of attachment and are battered on the rocks as the water tosses us downstream. If we are wise, we will see the danger and won't put ourselves in that situation. Similarly, when we see the uncontrollable nature of attachment and its outcomes in our lives, we remain friendly and kind to others, but don't let our mind get hopelessly caught in the current of clinging. Exercise 4. When the work of engineers is understood to be part of a socio-technical system, the traditional notion of engineering expertise is somewhat disrupted. While engineering expertise traditionally has been focused on the so-called technical aspects of their work, a focus on socio-technical systems suggests that engineering undertakings involve much more than statistics, measurements, and equations. Successful engineering requires an understanding of the existing artifactual and social world in which devices and machines will have to fit. Engineering knowledge must fit together with other forms of knowledge. Engineering expertise is not simply in the technical, but in integrating the technical with many other kinds of knowledge. Engineers are experts because they have the ability to design products that take into account and mesh with a complex world of people, relationships, institutions, and artifacts. When engineers keep in mind the values and politics that are promoted or weakened by their creations, they are more likely to have the effects they intend. Exercise 5. We can no longer afford to see law as a series of dry and dusty legal codes that, in the face of evolving technology, are already outdated by the time the laws are printed. That vision of law is just going to have to go. We must learn to see the discipline of law as a method for adapting to technological change, not a series of presently existing rules. We must attend to change in law rather than its present state. It's like driving a car. Many people look at the speedometer to see how fast they are going. That's looking at the law as it is now. But we need to be looking at how fast we are accelerating. That's a different way to look at law, and one that is necessary if law is to keep pace with technology. Exercise 6. Good science communication requires attention to both the science and the presentation. If the science is not good, it does not matter how well you dress it up. It is still not good science. If the science is good, but it is not presented well, it loses its power and impact. In the worst-case scenario, this becomes an indulgent hobby for the self-edification of the scientist and is not used to build the body of knowledge. The goal is to end up with good science that is effectively communicated. In general practice, the vast majority of scientific effort is in the collection and analysis of data, with little time or resources devoted to the communication of science. Rather than science communication being an afterthought, it is essential to factor in the time and resources that are needed for developing a quality communication product. Exercise 7. Inaccurate conceptualization of the obesity epidemic is that people are responding to the forces in their environment, rather than lacking in willpower and self-control. A metaphor that more truly captures the phenomenon is the tsunami. The environmental tsunami of cues and stimuli artificially make people hungry and lead them to unintentionally overconsume and to remain excessively sedentary. The societal response to the tsunami has been to provide swimming lessons and cheerleaders. The response has clearly not been proportional to the threat. People cannot change their responses to cues they do not perceive. Unless we focus on a more appropriate response, the obesity epidemic will continue. The real solution would be to control and reduce those forces that are causing the tsunami. Change the cues we are exposed to on a daily basis, or make explicit the cues we cannot change. Only then will people be able to make good use of the swimming lessons they receive and bring themselves into energy balance according to their individual preferences. Exercise 8. Turning good ideas into robust innovations requires that the ideas be changed from bare-bones possibilities to something in which investors can see value. Some great ideas are overlooked because their advocates did not provide a sufficiently compelling picture of the potential attractiveness of the innovation. Instead, the advocates hoped that the value would be self-apparent. It seldom is, or they made inflated projections of the timing and size of the return on the investment, thereby alienating the investors who distrust hype. The process of idea management should include a process step that turns the idea into a sufficiently complete picture in which potential investors can see the real value and risk of investing. This deal-making process resembles the investment process that venture capitalists require for their investments under consideration.